Hails and well met, fellow adventurers, and welcome to RPG Tales Told, where we regale stories of adventure and heroism, and also fun and entertaining accounts from tabletops everywhere. Shall we begin? Today's tale continues the You All Meet in a Tavern saga. Chapter 2, Leon. Lyra watched idly as James stormed off, his hands clenched in anger. She sighed to herself and took another puff of far leaf, allowing the calming sensation of it to permeate her body. She was concerned about James, but he was a pain in the ass sometimes. Will accepted the pipe whenever she offered it, clearly having trouble coping with their transition. At least he was dealing with it better than James, or Dan for that matter. The stream of nonsense words poured from him in a constant, breathless whisper. Whatever was going on with him was making her nerves scream anxiously. It didn't feel like something dangerous per se, but something about it scared the shit out of her. Yep, one more bowl was definitely in order. James dumb, Will grumbled. She made a non-committal gesture. He's freaked out. I'm sure that he'll figure it out soon enough that he needs to come back. He has no idea what's going on any more than you or me. We've got to stick together. Will grunted and waved in disgust, then stuck out his grubby-ass dwarf hand for her pipe. Fine. Let me reload. A few minutes passed before Will spoke again. I'm scared. The deep gravel of his voice crawled just above Dan's whispers. I not. Thank good now. A chill crept down Lyra's spine. What do you mean? Will's gaze turned pleading as he struggled to explain. Not. He growled and jabbed his head with a meaty finger. Oh, I see. Lyra shuddered, then took a calming breath. Horror gnawed at her, but with focus, she pushed it back. It's gonna be alright, bro. James is gonna come back and get back on board. Dan is gonna snap out of his lame shit and get on board. I'm already on board. Are you on board with me? She offered her most convincing grin. Will gave her a long look, then finally nodded. You heal good. On board. She solemnly fist bumped him, then chuckled. Next time, maybe don't min-max so hard. He rolled his bright blue eyes. On inspection, they were pretty much his only positive characteristic. You know something? She asked. Will grunted. You're a dog shit ugly, bro. He flew her the bird. Least not girl. Yeah. She coyly averted her gaze. In truth, she had only picked a female character because they had higher energy. If she had known that she'd actually end up living as the character she had reconsidered. Finally, she shrugged largely. It could be worse. I could have actually rolled up that halfling. Will started laughing, continuing until he was roaring with it, tears rolling down his ruddy cheeks. Lyra smiled to herself, satisfied that he was going to be okay for the time being. She sighed and let the feeling of peace wash over her. She was certain that it was her class at work, her connection to the land. Alan was right. It wasn't a divine connection. Not exactly. Her tie was to the world itself in all its forms. She was only level 1, but the connection felt wonderful. There was more to it than that. The feeling of well-being was great, but she also knew, on a basic primal level, that things were going to go her way. She had never felt confidence like this before. She wasn't sure what her situation was exactly. If she was going to be stuck in Alan's world permanently, or if there really was a way back. And if there was, if she even wanted to go back. It's not as if she'd never considered what she'd do if she got Isekai'd. Countless hours had been wasted fantasizing over it. True, she'd never considered doing it as a chick, but at least she was a hot elf chick. The fact that she was in Alan's world gave her pause, though. She hadn't really looked over the material, just gone with the first dumb idea to strike her fancy. Playing joke characters was her favorite thing to do, the only thing that made her really smile. Edgelords, goofballs, and even characters with chunibule. Ah, the smell of ham. Want ale? Will demanded. She blinked in surprise. Yeah, sure. Don't see why not. Oh, let me try something. Lyra waved for the barmaid's attention, smiling cheerfully at her. She'd actually had her eye on the busty young half-elf, but doubted that she'd be able to close the deal in any case, let alone as a girl. After a brief wait, the woman approached. There was an uncertain look in her large, hazel eyes as they scanned the table, and Lyra noticed that she avoided looking at Dan altogether.
What can I get for you?
Ale. Will thrust his fist in the air. My companion would like some ale, she explained. Could you bring a couple of mugs? And what kind of food is ready? The barmaid drew herself up slightly.
Fish fresh from the morning's catch, and boar stew with carrots and lentils.
Pig, Will demanded. Please bring some stew for my companion and a plate of fish for me. The woman nodded in acquiescence and hurried away. Lyra located her coin pouch with only minor difficulty and started examining the state of her funds. If memory served, the conversion rate of coin was 50-1, rising through denominations. Lyra paused. Denominations? She hadn't known that word before. Whatever. She smiled to herself at the pleasant clinking as she played with her coins. She hadn't spent much money on gear, so she still had most of her starting funds. The designs on the faces were pretty rough, but they were neat to look at. It had a pleasant change of pace to look at a coin and see a dragon or wolf instead of some dead guy's head. Yeah, Will stuck out his dwarf hand expectantly. No? Lyra shifted and moved her pouch further away. Will growled and gestured in annoyance. Ale. Don't sweat it. I'm buying this time, she told him. I know you dumped all your coin into your gear. Min-max to the max. I hit stuff good. And that's about all. You're stupid, broke, and ugly, but you do hit stuff good. Will seemed to consider this for a long moment, then slammed his fist into his hand triumphantly. Hit stuff very good. What a character art, she replied dryly. Grats. The barmaid chose his time to return with their food, expertly sliding it onto the table, then looking to her.
That'll be 22 copper.
Lyra smiled at her coyly and produced a silver. Keep the change, sweetie. The woman blushed deeply and offered a curtsy.
Thank you, milady. Would you like anything else?
Lyra found herself taken aback. The way the woman had delivered that last line implied what anything else might be, and although she was tempted, it felt wrong. She had forgotten how poor the average person was, and had probably just given the girl a few days' worth of free wages. Ale! Will roared. The fuck? Lyra looked over to find that the dwarf had already drank all the ale, including hers. She made a noise of irritation. Bro! She sighed and then smiled at the barmaid. 2 more ales, please.
Right away, milady.
She curtsied again and hurried off. You just had to be a dwarf, didn't you? Will pounded his chest, belched loudly, then shrugged. Dwarf strong. Dwarf alcoholic. Lyra imagined she could see the calculation going on in Will's head as he tugged at his beard thoughtfully. Astronomical sums and genius-level equations complete with imaginary numbers danced in the air around his head. Finally, he shrugged again. Is okay? Dwarf strong. Okay, fine, whatever. As long as you're satisfied. She dug into her fish, finding it to be pretty decent overall. Not great, needed seasoning. Also, they had left the head attached, which she found mildly distressing. Nothing like being stared down by your meal's empty sockets to whet the appetite. Abruptly, James dropped back into his seat across from her, scowling at basically everything. You ordered food? Ale! Will slammed his meaty fist on the table, causing James to flinch, his hand darting to his waist. Relax, she advised again, giving James a long look. He had built a half-elf of some variety, and had ended up with a pretty attractive character. Large chocolate brown eyes dominated his face, sleek features showcasing human and elven features in an appealing blend. His short reddish brown hair was glossy and wavy, complementing the slight green tint to his skin. With a start, she realized that her heart had begun pounding, her lower regions growing warm and fuzzy. What the absolute fuck? James' scowl faded into dismay.
What's with that look?
Lyra shook her head to clear it. Nothing. She had been giving Will crap for being a dwarf, but being an elf also had its share of drawbacks. She recalled reading the racial section for Drell elves, but hadn't worried too much about this aspect of them. She took a long, deep breath and slowly exhaled. She was better than this. She was in control. If her stupid elf body wanted to be horny, that was fine. She didn't have to do anything. Focus.
Whatever,
James growled.
I've been doing some thinking. We need to find a way to get out of this shit world and back to ours.
Back to the future, Will agreed. He glanced at the dwarf and grimaced.
No.
Will beamed at him, open-mouthed chewing stew so that much of it dripped into his beard. That's the plan, Lyra agreed, mostly to head off any further digressions. First, we need to put our heads together and come up with options. If we don't have a direction, we're just running in place. James grudgingly nodded.
All right, I guess that makes sense.
Dan's whispers rose in volume, clawing at her brain. She frowned towards his trembling frame. We've got to do something with him. James frowned deeply, staring down at the table in thought.
Anything in mind?
No. The barmaid returned with ales, but quickly caught the mood of the table and excused herself. Will happily started chugging his ale. She made sure to take hers this time, sipping it while considering the issue at hand. We can't really do anything as a group if one of us is out of commission, she thought out loud. I can't think of a way to fix him. I fix. Will lurched out of his seat and trudged over towards Dan. No, bro. She tried to grab him as he went past her, but it was like trying to stop a moving car with her bare hands. No, 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 no! Her eyes widened as Will cocked back his arm and slugged Dan in the side of the head. The frail wizard crashed to the floor, crumpling into a silent, unmoving heap. James stared at Will, his eyes wide with outrage.
Oh my god! What the fuck is wrong with you?
Will nodded in satisfaction and pointed at Dan. Need sleep. Lyra hurried to help Dan, turning him onto his back and checking his vital signs. His pulse was barely present, and his breathing was shallow and ragged. She forced the panic down. She was the healer. This is what she was here for. Step 1. Water. She glanced around, spotting only her ale. She snatched it just as Will was reaching for it. Step 2. Focus. She reached for the liquid with her spirit, instinct guiding her through the act of using her ability. It had been this way before when she tried to use her class features. She didn't really understand the process yet, but was able to feel her way through it. Step 3. Heal. Under her direction, a blue-gold aura rose from the ale and flowed into Dan's prone form. Cure malady hard at work. The tavern sounded hellishly loud as she waited for some sort of response. James was staring silently, but she could feel the stress coming off of him. Finally, Dan's pulse steadied, and his breath grew even. The weight of the world eased from her shoulders, and she slumped onto Dan's chair. Never do that again, she gave Will the sternest look she could. You jackass. We shall have to continue this tale in the next chapter. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you were entertained. Please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing the bell of notifications.